and execute at a high level.
Well, he shows off some of that arm talent. Zipping one for a first down to C.J. Saunders, yet another guy who they like a lot, a walk-on.
Lanes.
Yeah. There's no pass rush at all.
Haskins with time into the end zone, caught by C.J. Saunders for the touchdown.
Why so many folks are excited about Dwayne Haskins. A strike, Saunders with the catch.
Haskins' hand.
There's Saunders again. Nice move. Another nice move. You can see why J.T. Barrett raves about C.J. Saunders. Haskins going deep.
Looking for Saunders. He's got it. And Saunders inside the UNL 30.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks Podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the Roughnecks Podcast on YouTube. I'm your host, Cole Nixon. My goal of this podcast is to bring on leaders in the world of athletics, coaching, entrepreneurship, and just life in general to try and motivate us all to be better. We shouldn't strive to be millionaires in terms of money, but by the millions of lives that we can impact. If you want to be a guest or have a guest idea that you'd like to hear from, then shoot me an email at roughneckspodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe and then hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the future episodes. You can catch the Roughnecks Podcast in audio form on any of your favorite podcast apps like Apple, Spotify, or Google. Head over to social media. Give us a follow on Instagram at Roughnecks Podcast, Twitter at Roughnecks Pod C1, and Facebook at Roughnecks Podcast. As always, be sure to grab the bull by the horns and take control of your life. Let's get into this week's episode. What's up, everybody? I just wanted to start this episode by saying thank you to everyone who purchased something in the last Roughnecks little mini sale that I did, because everybody was asking me about shirts, so I made another sale. It truly helps grow this podcast and improve the podcast. I'm beginning to work on something, though, so your purchases are a lot easier. Stay tuned for that. The website may be coming. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say it is, because every time I usually say something, it never goes the way I want it to, but I'm working on something. We'll see how it goes. But getting into today's episode, I have a pretty special guest, and I'm super excited about this one. First, I want to give a quick shout out to Owen Fankhauser. He was back on an episode way back in the beginning of this podcast, so be sure to check that episode out. But he connected me with this guest, but we're not going to dive too much into the introduction just yet. C.J. Saunders, welcome to the Roughnecks Podcast. How we doing?
I'm doing great, brother. Thanks for having me on.
The crazy thing is, we just kind of spoke about this, is, we don't know each other, but we grew up fairly close to each other, because you're from Dublin and I'm from Pataskala, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's about a 30-minute drive roughly, give or take. So, but you went to, which Dublin did you actually go to?
Yeah, I graduated from Dublin Kaufman in 2015.
They actually just had a really good season not too long ago, didn't they?
Yeah, we usually have been fortunate. We've had a lot of good teams in football over the year, as well as other sports. But I know you're a football guy, and yeah, we've been fortunate to have some really good teams, man.
Yeah, but for anyone who doesn't happen to know who you are, which, I mean, I have a lot of Ohio listeners, and a lot of my listeners are Ohio State fans. So I told a few of my buddies, they're like, who I had on, and they're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I got the hookups, man. But so give us a background, give the Roughnecks listeners a little gist of who you are.
Yeah, so I graduated and grew up in Dublin, Ohio, suburb of Columbus, and graduated in 2015. Played football, basketball, and baseball. Ended up going to Ohio State out of high school, not on scholarship, just as a student. Thought I was done with sports. Fast forward a year, I ended up getting asked to come join the team as a walk-on. Did that and just kind of started my journey at Ohio State, really athletically there in my sophomore year. Worked hard, did what you need to do, and was playing corner when I started because we needed some roster, got depth at that position. I played receiver all growing up, so Ended up getting switched over to receiver there, about a halfway into the year, and was able to kind of make some plays and kind of start my receiver career there at Ohio State. Ended up earning a scholarship and then becoming a captain before our 2019 season, which was a pretty special season that a lot of Ohio State fans remember. I'm still upset, I'm sure, as a lot of fans are, that we didn't get it done that year, but still a lot to be proud of, man. And finished my career there. I ended up suffering an injury. Was unfortunately out that whole year of 2019, and we applied to try to get a medical. Just for whatever reason, it didn't go through. So last year was kind of obviously with COVID, but everything was thrown off in general. But for me personally, it was also a weird year because I was hoping to have aspirations to play at the next level and play in the NFL, and kind of didn't get that last shot to put stuff on film and show scouts and teams what I could do. So I ended up staying on for the 2020 season as kind of a assistant to the receivers, similar to what a graduate assistant would do, just in a little bit different capacity. Knew my plan was, I want to get back in shape, see if I can, continue to chase this dream. So after our season, we played Alabama in the national championship. I started training full time, getting ready for pro day. Was able to have some successful pro day, sessions and workouts with teams, and ended up getting signed there at the beginning of June with the Carolina Panthers. So I'm getting ready to, in a week or so to get back down there to Charlotte and get ready for training camp. But that's kind of my story in a brief overview, man.
Yeah, we're going to dive way into that throughout this podcast because that's what I want to discuss is your journey. And like I said, I'm an Ohio State fan. My friends are Ohio State fans, but you followed a path that was a little different than most people. Like when they think of, somebody that gets signed by the NFL, they think, oh, that you're this stud out of high school and then you get, you play a couple of years, maybe you play 4 years and then you get drafted. But, you went through a lot of adversity throughout your career. You had a lot of different things happen, but you ended up getting to that goal, and you still have a lot to go, I'm assuming, I hope for your goals. But you are truly like somebody that shows that grit. So like, let's just start at the very beginning, that decision to go to Ohio State. What ultimately made you go to Ohio State?
Yeah, so like I said, my story is weird in that the sense that I wasn't recruited as even a preferred walk-on. I wasn't a scholarship player. I was a decent, good high school player, but nothing like you said, not that 3, 4, 5-star guy that's getting heavily recruited. So I love sports. I loved everything about it, and just the way that my high school careers ended up. There didn't seem to be any offers on the table that I was seriously considering taking. So then it looked, okay, where would I want to go to school? Having that approach of education and how close to home do I want to be? Went on a couple of visits just as a student. Ohio State was that spot for me. I knew this is where I want to go. And then obviously looking back now, it was clear that, God wanted me there for a reason, because then not too long, about midway through my freshman year where I was just, taking classes and hanging out with friends and going out and doing whatever, which is fine. And then it just, that kind of all changed when Coach Fickell reached out to me at the time, who's obviously now with Cincinnati, but said, hey, you want to come be a part of the team? And I said, yeah, let's do it. It can't get much better than joining the Ohio State Buckeye football team. There's not many better programs in all of sports than that. So it was an easy decision. And then that kind of got me back into the sense of chasing something athletically, because as you know, and I'm sure you're starting to see, and I've talked, and everybody I talk to, once you get out of sports, it's like, it's obviously you can still, you have tremendous, goals and you can have a tremendous life, but it's just different the way you view that competitive nature, and how do you get that feeling that you got from sports and being a part of a team. It can be tough for people right out, especially, but that made it easy. I was getting back into sports and I was kind of like, hey, I've seen what it's like now for a semester to not be a part of a team, but let's go do this. Let's go buy in. Let's go help the team however you can. And so, yeah, it just that's kind of how the chips fell at Ohio State. And then from there, it just took off.
Oh, I feel it. Like that's the thing is, once you don't play, like once that your career ends or whatever, like your high school career ended, but then you still have that itch. Like you don't want to stop. Oh, yeah. You still want to keep playing. And I'm experiencing that right now. Like I've had a couple people who are playing next year at Ohio Wesleyan, and like I've talked to them and stuff, and they start talking about it. And I'm like, I don't get that anymore. Like it's just gone. And I'm like, it just it gives you that itch. Like, I wish that, because you have that competitive nature to want to compete and keep going with it, but it's gone. So it's hard, but like, at least you had that opportunity to come back and that itch was definitely probably fueling you to like want to get back into it. But so you came in as a corner because they needed spots there, ended up switching to receiver. Was there a complete reason for the switch?
So they, like I said, it was a shortage of, we needed legs at corner, straight up. That's what it was when I came in. And so did that and then tried, worked hard to be it. I wasn't a corner. That's not what I was going to be.
Oh, trust me. We talked before this podcast. I played corner 1 year.
Yeah.
And I was
dude,
not one.
It wasn't my position. Let's just say that. And, but like you said, you're still working hard athletically. You're still improving, your skill set and whatever, but kind of, there wasn't a necessarily specific change. It just kind of happened at practice. Coach Meyer and Coach Mick at the time were just like, hey, can you play receiver? Let's go check it out. And started, working with the receivers, doing some routes on theirs, making a couple plays here and there. And it's like, okay, maybe this guy can play and maybe he's got something at receiver that we weren't seeing. So it ended up working out really well for me because, like I said, I played receiver all in high school. And that's what I felt really comfortable with. Had a great high school receiver coach. And so I felt like I knew some things about the position. Obviously, I had to get a lot better to play at a place like Ohio State. But yeah, it was really just a blessing that kind of came not from my own, doing. It just kind of was like, hey, we think you got a shot at receiver. And so it just kind of went there and started having fun with that, man. And then just one thing after the next started, kind of growing from there.
So who was the first quarterback that you had when you were playing receiver?
Hold on, you're breaking up. What'd you say?
Who was the first quarterback that you had when you switched to receiver?
So at that time at Ohio State, the QB room was JT Barrett. We had Joe Burrow, and we had Dwayne Haskins.
Burrow back when he was still there.
Yeah, dude. So this is 2017. Spring of 17 going into that 18 season was kind of when I started going over to receiver. And obviously you look at it now, it's like that QB room was loaded, man. Like I've seen a couple pictures, it's just like those dudes are loaded. So those are who our QBs was. So it's taking you back in a little Ohio State time portal with that one.
So you experienced what, 3 different quarterbacks, rough?
Yeah, I played with JT there. Obviously Joe transferred and had a ton of success. I played with Dwayne for that 18 season, and then 19. I didn't get to play in the regular season, but going through camp and when Justin Fields transferred over from Georgia, so was able, saw a lot of tons of talent.
So I'm going to ask this as a fan, just because I want to hear it. You look at it like you have, different quarterbacks every year. Does it make a difference in the offense and like the leadership style throughout that?
Yeah, it definitely does. It's the goals are always the same, as over like the Ohio State Buckeyes, the offense goal is the same. But yeah, it does change in the fact that maybe you do some stuff with JT that you couldn't do with Dwayne, and then maybe you do some stuff with Dwayne that you couldn't do with Justin. And that, those weren't decisions for me to decide. Obviously, being a player, the coaches handle all of that. But it is in each team, whether you play at Ohio State or you're playing high school or little league, like the team dynamics are always important. And you really, the more I've seen in football, that quarterback is just such a pivotal position that if you can have a guy that has that trust, that has, whatever it is, that it factor, not only as a player, but as a great leader, there's something that can be done with that position where you just influence so many people. And so they all had their own different ways going about it as far as the quarterback play. And then obviously each year, kind of the reason I say is because each year, some years the receivers are really strong. You got veteran group. The next year, maybe it's your offensive line or a combination of both, or running backs. And that's just offense. Obviously you have the team with defensive backs and linebackers, D-line, whatever it is. So yeah, each year was a little bit different. Unfortunately, I was never able to experience a national championship. And I think all the guys that I play with, we look back and it's like, damn, we wish we would have been able to do that. But we did have a ton of success and have a lot of great memories looking back on some really big wins in Ohio State history. I'm
going to ask you that. You mentioned big wins, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. What is your favorite win at Ohio State?
So there's a few that like really come to mind, but for some reason, some of those games, the 2017, the 2018 games with Penn State, like they were just, we were on the road there, and you probably remember Dwayne throwing, to Ben Victor, that touchdown across, catching it and then having a big run after the catch, and KJ, having a one-handed catch on the screen and scoring a touchdown. Like there are just so many. The crowd was going crazy. Night game in Penn State, wideout, the whole shebang. Like it was juiced up in there. You could barely, you can barely hear anybody standing next to you, let alone like trying to get the plays and whatnot. But that game, and specifically, I think that was the 18 game season against Penn State over at their place. Like that game to me stands out as just being, wild.
I can tell you as a fan, and I got buddies that are way more into it than I am. Like I love Ohio State football, don't get me wrong, but like some of my like Ohio State fans can be a little like obsessive almost. But I mean, that's a game like they'll bring up all the time, and I'm like, all right, I get it. Like you didn't play in the game, like you weren't there. Like why are you acting like this is your world? But you ended up. You ended up like you went from walk-on to scholarship. Talk about, for the players who maybe are listening that are trying to work for a scholarship, who are walk-ons. Talk about maybe like what it takes. Like what advice would you give them to get there?
So, I mean, first of all, you got to be willing to work harder than everybody else. So that's going to be the first thing. And you hear everybody, every successful person that I've ever heard from or have listened from or spoken to, it's like the older I get in each year that goes by, like I'm 24, but I'm continuing to learn. And each year it's like hard work is like the key, is like the key to life. And like I said, it's such one of those things that you've been hearing now. Like we've been hearing that, especially if you played sports, like you hear that ever since you're little, like you got to work hard. Like, are you working hard? You're working hard. But then it really is like every successful person just says the reason they're successful is because they worked harder than everybody else. So when you're a walk-on, if you are a walk-on now, or if you're going to be and you're listening to this, it's you're not in the same boat. Like, yes, you're on the same team, but you're in a different path. And that's how it should be. Like the schools have scholarships to give out, and these are great, great, highly touted players out of high school. Like they're going to pour more energy as far as studying, and they're probably going to get more reps than you when you first get there, and all this stuff, which is part of the gig. And you can't let all that type of stuff, like you can't have any pride in saying like, oh, I deserve this or that. Like if you're a walk-on, like you really have to have the mindset of like that I am fortunate to be here, and I'm going to help this team however I can. And that's kind of the mindset I adopted, and really trying to be a great teammate. And then once, if it's in your future and God has that in for you, where you do have the talent, and it works out in the position where you're going to help that team on the field, like that's a blessing that comes with it. But your first goal, I would say, as a walk-on on a team, is you have to add value in some way. And if it's not on the field, which is hard for a lot of walk-ons, especially if you're going to a Power 5 program, like you're probably going to be less athletic. You're probably not going to be quite as good just yet as some of these other guys. But that doesn't mean you can't be effective in the locker room. You can't be a great teammate. You can't, help other guys and do, there's tons of ways to add value other than just playing on the field or at practice. So, but to sum it up, to answer your question, was just, you got to be willing to put in the hard work, and you got to have a selfless attitude. Because if you're going to go in there and you're not going to work hard, then how are you going to close that gap with these guys that are, maybe there's a guy running a 4.3, I'm running a 4.6, 4.7. How am I going to close that gap? Or in the strength weight room or whatever it is. And so you got to be willing to work harder than guys. And the final thing is you got to be selfless. You got to be a great teammate, or else it's forget about the rest.
Well, like you said, like you got to work hard, and like, you always have those people, oh, I deserve to be here. I deserve to be playing. I deserve to be, up on higher on the depth chart. But like, you always see those people, but you're like, you look at them and you're like, all right, what are you doing to get there? That's the thing, is that I don't think a lot of people look at. Like I'd look at that, you see it even at the D3 level. You see it, freshmen come in thinking they're hot shit, and then they come in and they get a kind of a rude awakening. But then you also have those ones who are like, oh, this is bull crap. The coach doesn't like me, blah, blah, blah. Like you have, if you want it, if you think you deserve it, you have to go get it. It doesn't just come, like you don't get everything handed to you. And that's a problem with like the younger generation, my generation, and a little bit younger. Like we all just think everything just gets handed to us because, I mean, we can go back and forth on the battle. We got the participation trophies, everything. Everybody gets a trophy for everything, but that's not the point. We're almost coddled as our generation because of the fact that, we just get it handed to us, and you don't get nothing gets handed to you. One thing that I've learned through this podcast, actually, the one thing that you get handed to you easily is your failures. Your successes, they don't come easy. You got to earn those. Now, those failures are good, but you have to earn those. And you also talked about what are you going to do to close that gap? The thing too that I learned, I always looked up at the players when my freshman year that I looked up to. I'd want to lift with them and be around them because those are the players that are going to push you. If you're lifting with people or working out or doing everything with the people that are below you, they're going to pull you down. There's actually a crazy thing with Snoop Dogg, of all people, that he talks about literally it's closing the gap. And he said, to close that gap, you're either going to go up and there's going to be people behind you and you're going to come back down. But he's that's not how you close the gap. How you close the gap is you bring those people with you. And that's one of the things that I think you did real well because, you went from that walk on to scholarship to captain. So you worked your way all the way up to captain, which is to me as a true inspiration. You truly shows what it takes to get there, to get what you want. It shows the grit. It shows that you focus on your craft and take the time to become who you want. So what was that feeling like when you got the news that you were going to be the captain for the 2019 season?
Yeah. So it was pretty special, man, to be honest. And it was one of those things where if you would have asked me hey, are you going to be a captain? I would have said at the time, before, we had a team meeting, I would have been I could see it, but dude, that team, our team, we had so many good leaders, man.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many guys on that roster that easily could have been captain, and it just for whatever reason, it wasn't that time right there. But man, so good. So looking back, it's pretty special to be able to as I continue to get out like that, I was able to represent the university and that team and such a historic, program. And I didn't take that lightly, Dan, and I still don't take that lightly. Obviously it's in the past, but it's definitely something that's stuck with me. And those qualities have made me, who continue to be who I want to be. So getting the news was super special. And obviously it's even more special just because you hear the people around you that really care for you, your family, your friends, former coaches, whatever it is. You hear how happy they are when something big happens for you, and everybody has those, that circle or those people that in their life. And so, when you share a big moment, it's almost cooler when you see their reaction, see how proud they are of you. That was pretty special for me, man.
Yeah. And we've already discussed it. Your journey has not been sunshine and rainbows. We've already mentioned it, but you discussed you had injuries, you had to battle through all those injuries. Talk us through about handling those injuries, because I've seen a lot of players, even myself, my senior year, I broke my elbow of high school. And this senior year, I messed up my other elbow. Things happen, and it almost makes you just want to quit and give up. So talk us through what kept you, what gave you the hope instead of just giving up and throwing in a towel.
Yeah, there's always going to be that doubt, man. Especially in sports, and not everybody is going to have the opportunity or even wants to, maybe to play at the next level. If you're a collegiate athlete, D1, 2, 3, whatever it is. But or if you're a high school athlete and you're just, that's it for you. But injuries are it's something that in sports you deal with more than others. And the thing that kept me going really was the belief in myself, I think, in the way that others believed in me. Hey, you can do, whatever it is, you can do this, you got this in you. And yeah, I experienced some injuries that kind of made it tough, where I would have loved to do more on Saturdays during my time at Ohio State. But I also am a firm believer and I'm a Christian, and believing in my relationship with Christ had a big impact on that, where it's just there's something I'm getting developed into something, I'm being prepared now for something in the future. And if you're able to adopt that mindset where there's always, whatever's happening is supposed to happen in your life. And as long as you work as hard as you can at what you're doing, whether you're studying, whether you're working out, whether you're XYZ, you name it, you put in the 100% of your effort, then everything else is going to work how it's supposed to. And I've been able to try to use that in this most recent journey, where yes, I did sign with the Panthers, but I got a lot of work to do to go make this team. Like there's a lot of other guys in a similar position. Like I still got a lot of work to be done. And so I'm obviously going to give it everything I got. Do I want to make this team? Yes, of course. But if I'm able to study and know all my plays and know what I'm doing, I worked hard and I treated people the right way and I did all the stuff and I don't make the team. If I truly did do all I could, then that failure, which I didn't reach my goal, like it's not the end of the road. And so I know that, okay, this is for something else. Like I'm being prepared for something else. This is just another step. Like this was supposed to happen. That mindset of kind of whatever happens is supposed to happen as long as you do the work, because you could sit here and say that, but if you're not doing the work, like if I go in to show up and I haven't been working this whole month and I'm out of shape and this and that, and then I go, like I didn't do all I could, so you have to, it just goes back to hard work. If I'm working hard and I do everything I can and an injury happens, a setback happens, that's how it's supposed to be. This world is it's not fair. Like we talked about, it's a crazy world, but all you can control is yourself, man. And I really believe that. And so that's kind of what kept me going through my injuries at Ohio State.
You said a lot in there that is very valuable. And like a few things that I want to point out is the first thing that you said at the very beginning, you said, I still have a lot of work to do. That's what I love. People like think, oh, I got signed or like whatever, or I made the team. You're not done there. Like the journey's just began at that point. Like that's the next chapter. Like now you got to get back to work. And then the other thing, like you said, you as long as you put in 100% effort, even if you fail, that you put in that effort, you put in that work, and you tried. And guess what? You're going to learn a lot, because that's one of the things Fankhauser talked about on his episode, because he's, baseball didn't work out at Kent State. Baseball didn't work out at Ohio State. First time he tried out for the football team, didn't work. And he's like, you learn something through every one of your failures. That's the biggest thing. Every time you fail, you're learning way more than when you succeed. That's what I think a lot of people take for granted. They think when they fail, it's time to give up. No, that's the time, like, you just learned a lot. Take those lessons that you just learned from that failure and try to keep going. And that's something that you did very well. And I applaud you for that. And it truly, like, I said it again, but you truly are an inspiration to like athletes, like anybody who may not be, this 5-star, 4-star, 3-star athlete. What you got to realize is, just because you're not getting recruited by the schools that you may want to get recruited by, or even if it's, you're not getting the jobs that you want to get, it doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean that you can't get to where you want to get eventually. You just got to keep putting in the work. You may have to start out on the bottom like you did. Like you may have to go play corner, not a position that you're used to get to being that starting receiver or whatever you want. And you could put that in a whole different like life situations. And that's where I think people don't look at it. And that's why I love sports too, because sports teach us so much about life. Oh, yeah. And that's why, like, my kids will definitely play sports. And I'm glad my parents like put me through, they didn't force sports upon me, but like when I was young, all right, you're playing soccer, you're going to try football, you're going to try basketball, you're going to try these sports, because eventually you might find one that you love. I mean, my sport growing up was basketball, but I went and played college football. It was a whole different. Right. But like those sports can teach you more than life really can.
No doubt. I agree 100% with that. And sports are going to end at some point for all of us, whether you're Tom Brady or you're me or you're you. Like at some point it's gonna end, right? So, but the thing that's so cool I think that athletes are able to experience, but even if you're not, like these principles and these things, like exactly the way we're talking about, how, like you said, you put in the perfect words. Like for me, it was starting at the bottom, playing corner, but guess what? Like you want to go be a millionaire and work, and like you want to be the CEO of this big time company. You think you're just going to get that right out of school? Like, no, it's going to take a lot of hard work. Apple started in a garage.
Like all these companies, they started very small.
Much hard work. And one of our coaches, Coach Barnes at Ohio State, would always say, and I really have enjoyed kind of like having that in my head, is like he used to say, you'll never loaf into excellence. And I thought that was awesome, because when you think of, at least at Ohio State, what loafing was maybe you didn't finish the drill, or maybe you came up a few steps short and you didn't finish all the way, or you cut a rep out, you were loafing, you were just chilling on it, you didn't really intend to finish. But think about all the greatest things you've in your life that you have done and that you will do. They take everything you have, right? Like you just think like everybody has those things, whether it's an amazing test grade. Like I bet that like that hardest test that you did, you got the grade you wanted, like it probably took the most studying you've ever done. Or on the football field, that play you made, like I bet it's because you were going the hardest you've ever gone and you were so focused. Like, but if you don't give that, and we've continued to talk about this hard work and that 100% effort, like you're not going to loaf into anything excellence in your life. And this you said it earlier, like this life isn't going to give you anything and nothing's going to come easy. So there's something you can stand out, and you can forge a way for yourself by just giving your best effort and working harder than what you thought was possible or what other people thought was possible, and you just look, your life will start to go like this.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it because that hard work that you took, because you appealed for another season with the medical and whatever. They denied it, which Ohio State fans will all say is bullshit, but we'll move past that point. Actually, I think a lot of other fans will also say it's bullshit, but we'll move past that. And then you didn't quit, you kept going, you did the pro day, you had a few good days, and then all of a sudden you get that call. What was that feeling like when you finally got that call?
Yeah, so it was exciting, man. I was fortunate enough to get invited as a tryout player with the Falcons, actually, for their rookie mini camp. Went down there, had a great experience for the weekend there. Met some great dudes and a lot of great coaches for a few days. The weekend ended with me not getting signed, and that's just how it goes, And thanked him for the opportunity, and came back and still working out, still being in shape. And a week and a half later, I get a call like, "Hey, we want you to come down to Carolina for a workout." Okay, sweet. Like I'm another opportunity. Let's see what happens. And like I said, it was able to be successful in there, run some routes on there, make some plays, this and that. And they were like, "Hey, we're gonna make a roster move with you." And at that point, it's kind of like, wow, like this is surreal. Like it's signing. I'm about to really sign an NFL contract, and so it was really special in that sense. Like just that all this, the culmination. I still haven't even, just because everything's going so fast. Like I haven't really been able to reflect on it. Just because it's right now, it's just looking at what's next. But calling my parents and family and friends, and they're like everyone like that I care about and that I love was so excited for me, and it's been such a journey. It was truly just a special kind of moment there. And then like you had said, it's like the work's not done. Like that's just the beginning. I still got a lot of work to do if I want to play this season and continue to have a career that I want to have. So kind of shifted that mindset into like, okay, let's get to work and let's get it going again. So, but no, overall, man, it was such a special feeling to be able to sign that contract.
The crazy thing is I didn't even know about the Falcons things, to be honest. And it just goes to show, like, it's another setback, another failure in a way. But it just goes to show that just because you fail doesn't mean there's not more opportunities. That's what I really am stressing in this episode is like, anybody listening, just because things don't go your way at the point you may want them to doesn't mean it is over. And you are a great example of that. And I truly appreciate that, because like I don't think like this episode is packed with so much good stuff. But
it's a good conversation, man. No doubt, dude.
It really is. It's crazy when you get two football guys together, you can go a whole.
Oh man, look out! You start throwing motivational words left and right. That's what you get in the football world. No, but it's true though, because you never know what the what the next step is. You never know what's around the corner. And like you said, failure, setback, whatever that is, like people will get bogged down by it. And I'm sure you've seen it. Everybody listening probably has people they know that something happens and it kicks them off their game, which is normal. But how long until that turns around and you get motivated? Like, yes, you can have some doubt. Like you were like, hey, man, like I really wanted this to happen, or I worked really hard and it didn't happen. But at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, you got to flip that and be back on your grind. Like you got to get back to it and have that end goal in whatever that is in your mind. And I think that's where some, people start to fall off, whether it's, or you can have success on the first turnaround, like, hey, came up short. All right, let's do it. Well, what are you going to do? Like, this is a long life, like God willing for all of us, that what are you going to do in that third, fourth, fifth, sixth setback that comes and like, okay, I got to keep going. Like, I got to keep going. Are you going to tap out and be like, this is too hard? Or are you going to be like, hey, this is just who I am. This is just what I do. I just go hard and I look up and see what happens. And that's who I'm trying to, that's who I want to be. And you said earlier in the episode, like that's the people I want to surround myself with, like people that lift me up, that bring me along with them. I don't want to be doing this, like you said. I want to be raising up and have people around me that are pushing me, and I want to be somebody for my friends and family in that extent. So, man, it's just you could talk about it forever.
Oh, you really could. Like the one thing that basically I want to stress is it's something that I've heard on other podcasts, other people. Failure equals opportunity. That's the biggest thing here. Like that's really what we're talking about in all of this. Failure equals opportunity. But I gotta ask you a few questions as an Ohio State fan, and my buddies might be pissed if I didn't ask a few of these questions. So we got a few questions. Favorite football memory at Ohio State?
Favorite football memory. Dude,
if it's not the Penn State win.
Yeah, no, it's actually it's a culmination of everything that happened, but it was a game in general. It was our 2019 Big Ten championship win against Wisconsin there at Indianapolis in the Lucas Oil Stadium, and the culmination of that game was just so crazy because we had our team that year was loaded. As we talked about earlier, we wanted, our goal was to win the national championship. Obviously it fell short of that, but like we were undefeated, we're rolling, and we come out that first half, and Wisconsin's they're a good team, man. Like they're sticking it to us, and we're just kind of flat. I think we thought it was going to be easy. I think we thought it was going to be similar to what we played them earlier in that season at home, and we kind of had our way with them, and it just wasn't. Like they're still a really good team. Like this is a championship game. Like you got to be on your P's and Q's to win a championship ball game. And so going to halftime, and I was kind of able to, it kind of been reported about a lot, but I had a strong moment. Me and a couple other leaders talking to the team at halftime and trying to, rally the troops. Like, let's do this, blah, 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 whatever. We go out the second half, and we're the best team in the country that second half. And I truly believe it. Like I've been able to watch a couple, and something pops up on Instagram, and I'm watching highlights from that game. Like dudes are making plays. The energy was crazy. And so the way we responded to adversity in that game, and everybody coming together, special teams, offense, defense, the second half of that Wisconsin game in 2019 was just something like so crazy to be a part of. And so that's a memory to me where everybody just bought in, and we really had to overcome a tough first half and a tough opponent. And we were able to make it happen and, get to the Final Four.
What I want to point out about, you've talked about two memories now from Ohio State. What I want to point out to some of these people listening, notice how none of these are about you. These are about the team. And that's what it's about. Like, if you want to be a very good team, you want to be a championship caliber team, you can't have players about me, I, you, or me and I. It's got to be about everybody. And I give you props for that. And that goes to show why you were voted a captain, why you were seen as a leader, because it wasn't about you. It was about everybody else. And it was about all of us together. That is very important, that I think a lot of people need to take in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's it's a fact, man. You're hitting the facts on the head today.
So another one I got to ask is, did you have any players or coaches that you really looked up to, early in your career or throughout your career?
Oh yeah, there's so many. There's so many good dudes that when I was, young on the team, and we're like a big brother to me. Dude, I can name so many just like off the top of my head. Like, we had like Terry McLaurin, Paris Campbell, Johnny Dixon in our receiver room, and we had, the D line was such a powerful group at that time as far as leadership, and obviously great players, Tyquan Lewis, Tracy Sprinkle, Jalen Holmes. Like, dude, there's people I'm forgetting too, that just people that helped me at that time, where I appreciated it at the time, and I didn't really know it. They were just being good dudes. Like I added, when I first joined, obviously no value on Saturdays. Like whether I was doing what I needed to do or not, like it wasn't going to affect the team on Saturday. But they were guys that just talked to me and kept me in the loop, and messing around, this and that in the locker room, getting close. Like that helped me so much. And then I was able to just kind of follow their path, and hopefully I was able to do that for guys coming in by the time I was getting ready to leave, and, just having conversation with younger players and messing around with guys and just kind of just making sure everybody feels like you're part of the team. That's something that I was able to really get shown by them, and then hopefully implement it into my own career for younger guys. But those are just some names off the top as players. There are many more that I didn't name that helped me out. Coaches, a big coach for me who's we're kind of just it's dude, he's been just a really good influence on me, is Coach Hartline. And it's interesting because at the time when he first joined, he wasn't Coach Hartline, wide receivers coach. He was just coming back. He had just finished his career, and he saw something in me and started pouring into me and helping me out. We started getting close. Like, he was a coach, and obviously now he's showing that he's one of the best in the country, recruiting on fire, coaching guys, developing guys like crazy. Keenan Bailey is a guy that's going to be one of the most successful coaches in college football one day. And he started as a GA, and he was a guy that helped me, and whatever I needed, he was willing to do it. Coach Mick Coach Mick is the weight, he's the weight.
I've never really known much about the guy, but everybody I've talked to that's played at Ohio State talks about Coach Mick.
Coach. I couldn't think of where I'm thinking weight training, but no, he's a strength and conditioning coach. He's the head, but dude, his whole staff, like, those guys kill it, man. Like, it really is such a special place at Ohio State. And those are just some of the names that come when I think of like who helped me, like who led me along my journey. And like, dude, there's endless names. That's what's so special about Ohio State.
So I ask all of my guests these three questions, and I'm going to ask you as well. First one is, who is your biggest inspiration?
Biggest inspiration. Well, I definitely, my dad is like inspiration. I kind of like, my dad's my hero for sure. And just for so many reasons, but I just feel like he's been huge in my life of just supporting me, and not like, my mom's the same way, right there with him. Like, those two have just been nothing but supportive for me. And it was pretty special just because my dad coached high school baseball, so I was able to play for him. And now that I went to Ohio State, like, whether the success was there on the field on Saturdays or not, they were just rooting for me and just happy that I'm doing something I love. And so I really appreciate that no matter if I fail or if I succeed or make the game winning play, or if I make the game losing play, like, I know that my parents are going to be there for me. And so that's kind of a huge, those are two of the biggest inspirations in my life.
Another one, what are the goals of CJ Saunders going forward?
Yeah, I mean, the immediate goals is to make this football team. That's the immediate goal for me right now that I'm focusing on, is to play for the Carolina Panthers this season, and carve out a role for myself in the NFL. So that's the immediate goal for me. And then from there, it's just, I haven't even really thought about long-term goals, because right now it's just, you got to attack. If you don't get this one, like, then obviously the rest is history. So that's the immediate goal right now, is to make an impact at this camp and make this football team, and just leave everything out on the field.
One of my favorite ones that I ask is, if you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing, what would it be?
So, man, that's a good one, dude. That's a good one. I would say, I would tell I was able to learn it in college, and I came out of high school. I was a good athlete, this and that. I wasn't, all American or anything, but I in high school, I thought a lot more than what it was. Like, I thought stuff was about me, and like kind of how we talked about earlier. And that's kind of like how I think I was in high school, whether it was arrogance or being, cocky or thinking you had this or that. And yes, I was good, but sports, but at the same time, like, how are you treating everybody? Like, there's just a lot that goes into that. And I think I would go back to tell my high school stuff, like, like, hey, dude, it's like, it's not all about you, man. Like, big dog, like, you got a lot to learn. Like, and like I said, I think I really wanted to change that about me in college and moving forward. Like, I wanted to be like much more selfless, and I wanted to be serving, and I had a bunch of things like, hey, this is who I want to be, and I want to grow into this type of man. And so I would have gone back to my younger years and just been like, dude, like, just focus on having fun and being a great teammate, and it's not always about you. Like, just like help everybody you can. And that's kind of something that I would go tell my younger self, or also anybody younger, that, if you think it's about you, you're wrong. Like, like, we're called to help others in this world and in this life. So that's something that I'm continuing to try to learn every day and implement into my life.
Yeah, I think that's a lot, especially like, the people on the football team that are most likely to go play college football. If it's D3, D1, whatever, like you can tell usually, especially like once you get into the season. And like, I know I was the exact same way. Like, I wish I could be like back, like, dude, you're not as good as you think you are. And that's where I think a lot of people get lazy. I think that's where a lot of people get lazy is they think they're hot shit. And then all of a sudden it's like, because I'll never forget, like I used to think I could go play D1 football. My first day of D3 football, I was like, yeah, I could never play. Like I'm nowhere near D1 caliber. Like I realized it real quick. And it's like, that's where I don't think people realize what it takes to be like that elite. And that everybody, you got mom, dad, friends, family, everybody hyping you up. So you get that in your head. But that's something I 100% agree with that. But now it is time for my favorite part of the episode, which is Motivation Monday. This is the point in the episode where I like to give my guests the opportunity to give a little inspirational bump to Roughneck listeners as they listen on their Monday morning to set the tone for their week. So what do you got for Motivation Monday?
Man, you set it up well there. So it's just off the top for Motivational Monday, man. I would say, man, just wherever you're at, you take this next little bit and that to yourself and just think of where you've been, reflect for just as long as you wish, where you've been, where you're at, where you're going, and just that's something that's been helping me. And like in that moment, just think like there's so much to be thankful for. And if we're living a thankful life, like what does that look like? And everybody's a little different, but like when it's me, like when I'm living thankful, like I'm reaching out to friends, like I'm working hard in all I'm doing. Like I'm when I'm talking to somebody or talking to my parents, like I'm intentional in that time. And we go through, ups and downs and there's we get off the track or whatnot, but like take this time to reset and be like, man, there's so much I could be thankful for. Okay. So now you list all these things, a ton of things come to mind. And now I am thankful. Now, what does that look like? Like that should be me pouring myself out into the people around me, into my community, into my job, my girlfriend, my whatever that is for you. So man, just there's so much to be thankful for. You just have to look around. You just have to focus on it and find it. And then when you do, make sure you're living that life where it's showing how thankful you are. Put everything you got into what you're doing, care for those around you, make this world a better place, and just watch your life take off. If you can adopt that attitude every day, you'll look out where you'll be in 1 week, 1 year, 10 years, like the sky's the limit for you.
You're speaking of thankfulness, and it sounds something familiar to me. It almost sounds like quiet time. Do you guys still have quiet time at Ohio State?
Yeah, we do some stuff like that.
Yeah. See, our coach was good friends with Jim Tressel, which is so we know all about all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this sounded very familiar.
Critical, man.
It really is.
Your life and look, watch where you go, man.
But with that, that's a wrap on this episode of the Roughnecks podcast. Thank you so much, CJ, for coming on. To all of my listeners, be sure to follow CJ through his journey. As you know, like we've just talked about, he's working to get that NFL spot. I know a lot of you are going to follow anyway, considering I have a lot of Ohio State fans. But I know I'll keep being in touch with you throughout your journey. You really are an inspiration. Like this story has been shown like what it takes to be, you might have to start at the bottom and that's okay. So to anyone who is in high school finishing up their college career and you think you have it tough, just know like you didn't have it that tough because you went through a lot of shit. And whatever excuse you want to make for why, the coach is out for you, whatever, you still you're still fighting for that spot. Like that's what it shows. Like just because you think it's over, it's not. And you truly do embody our slogan on this podcast, which is grab the bull by the horns. So grab the bull by the horns is, we look at it, there's the bull and it's life. And the bull rider is us. And it's going to knock you down. It's going to throw you around, but you can't just lay there and let it walk all over you. So you got to get up and grab the bull by the horns and take control of your life. And the only person that you can do that, like you've mentioned in this podcast, the only person that can do that is you.
That's it, man. I'm super thankful. I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you, Owen, for hooking us up, man. I'll be following the Roughnecks podcast, man, And to everybody listening, you got a good guy leading this podcast. So I recommend you keep listening, man.
I appreciate that. But until next week, Roughnecks out. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe and then hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future episodes. If you want to be a guest on this podcast or have a guest idea, then email me at roughneckspodcast@gmail.com or message me on social media on Instagram at Roughnecks Podcast, Twitter at RoughnecksPodC1, or Facebook at Roughnecks Podcast. Life is hard and will knock you down just like a bull will. Don't lay there and let it run you over. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Till next week, Roughnecks out.